It feels like last week was the week of the tight end. We had so many guys have big games. Talked about several tight end options on the waiver wire video. I mean, yeah, maybe the problem, Chris, is there's too many good options. You know what? Maybe next year on Draft Lane, we should have some two tight end leagues. What do you think?
No.
All right, that might be too far, but look, it's a legit problem. There might be too many confusing options here. Who do you start? Who do you pick up? Who do you stream? And so we're here to help you. We're going to go through every matchup for week 6 and talk about quarterbacks and tight ends, who to start, who to sit. Remember, this week we have two teams that are off. It's just the Vikings and the Texans. Now look, there are some guys you just definitely start no matter what. At quarterback, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels. And then at tight end, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, and if he returns, George Kittle. And by the way, if you feel like you're getting value from our videos, you want to support this channel, help us out, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. We're on the road to 100K. Help us get there. Let's kick things off with the Thursday night game. It's going to be the Eagles at the Giants. Jalen Hurts still, you're starting him if you got him. What about Dallas Goedert at tight end?
Look, he keeps scoring a touchdown, but I don't feel great about Dallas Goedert this week. I talked about it on the wide receiver video. The Giants play a ton of man, a ton of cover one. Dallas Goedert struggles against those coverages, but he's got touchdown potential, so I'm going to say risky streamer this week.
Always hard to predict when Goddard's going to be involved. Don't feel like this is the week. As we talked about in the wide receiver video, it might be the AJB game, but regardless, it's kind of touchdown dependent here, so risky streamer. Now for the Giants, a new tight end option has emerged for fantasy. It's Theo Johnson, who can't stop scoring touchdowns. So talk about him, and also Jackson Dart. We've seen some of the upside he brings. We've also seen some of his limitations.
Yeah, I can only put Jackson Dart in the super flex, and that's only because of his running potential. Barely super flex here. What are we getting through the air right now? Hardly anything. And then Theo Johnson, look, 2 touchdowns last week. Good chance he gets 0 touchdowns this week, but if you need him, you can stream him.
Right. Look, for Dart, exactly. He's probably always going to be just a super flex option. There's just not great upside for a quarterback who, even if he did, or I should say when he did have Malik Neighbors, wasn't doing a lot through the air. Now Slayton is out. The rushing upside is great, but that's pretty much all he brings. And then Theo Johnson, is he going to do much more other than score touchdowns? He is a very touchdown-dependent streamer who I prefer in like a half or non-PPR format. But again, if you just need someone who can do that, then he's going to be out there. This week's Europe game is going to be the Broncos at the Jets. So this is really interesting because the Broncos managed to beat Philly, and they're looking like a good team, but Bo Nix, it just still feels like there's something missing here. We're not getting that upside from last year. Even in that victory, his numbers weren't great.
Yeah, they weren't great, but this is the Jets. This defense does not scare me at all. That was on the road against the Eagles. I was like, I don't feel good about Bo Nix. I feel much better about him this week. I'm going to say he's solid. And then, look, we finally saw a tight end Evan Ingram look healthy, scored a touchdown. I think if for some reason he's still on the waiver wire or you've been holding him, you should feel pretty good about him this week against the Jets. Also solid.
Yeah, so I did go into detail on Ingram on that waiver wire video. Like I said, so far his numbers aren't really eye-popping, but the target share is there. So he's probably one of your better streaming options if he's out there. Bo Nix, again, I just don't know the upside. You brought this up the other day. Definitely some home road splits here. This isn't just on the road. This is out of the country. I know it's the Jets and they're bad, but at the same time, is he really going to have to pass the ball a whole lot? I'm worried about game script here for him. I think he's just kind of a high floor streamer. All right, then the Jets. Look, I didn't think they'd be a playoff team, but winless, the worst team in the NFL, possibly on both sides of the ball. I don't think we can say that that's not the case as of right now. So at this point, what do we do in Justin Fields?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, he was terrible last week, but he put up a good fantasy game because of garbage time. And he's doing a lot of his damage in garbage time. But I actually kind of like him this week because for some reason he is significantly better against defenses that play man. And this has been this case his whole career versus defenses that play zone. Cowboys are one of the zone heaviest teams. He struggled for pretty much that entire game until it was garbage time and the Cowboys are pretty much, already done. They're like, we don't even care anymore. So I think he's going to have an okay game here. Now, you can't feel great because it's the Broncos. It's a tough defense. but he can run. I'm going to keep him in the solid tier, but risky solid. And then look, Mason Taylor, this looks legit. This is 2 weeks in a row. This guy is getting the target share, the first read. Again, it is a tough matchup here, but I think if you got Mason Taylor, just keep rolling with him. He's solid, but also risky.
Yeah, well, start with a good Mason Taylor. Also, I've talked him up a couple of weeks in a row, first as a stash and then as just a straight up ad. That target share is going steadily up. I mean, 12 targets last week. That's great for a tight end. Well, look, Justin Fields, I feel it's going the opposite direction here. He hasn't been really good since week one. He hasn't been good even against mediocre to bad defenses. I mean, they played, like I said, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, some of the worst defenses in the league. And now he gets the Broncos in this game. I mean, I feel like this offense is sort of lost. I don't want to risk it here. I don't want to risk just an absolutely horrible game from Fields. And so I'm going to avoid him. All right, now we're going to get into the main early slate for Sunday. First, a reminder, by the way, it's week 6. It's also Boostober for Underdog. That's right, you're getting profit boosts almost every day this month. And if you're a new customer, if you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it. Sign up using code ENDGAME. You get a gimme pick that's Jalen Hurts on Thursday, just getting a yard. You get the free pick. You also get still up to $1,000 of bonus cash when you first sign up using code ENDGAME. And new customers, when you first play $5 towards any pick, you get an extra $100 in bonus funds. All right, now we got two of the more, I guess, pleasant surprises on the season. Seahawks and Jaguars both keep winning and looking pretty impressive for the most part. Jags pulled off that victory against the Chiefs. Now the Seahawks, well, Sam Darnold, I guess I got to apologize. I had my doubts. He's looking pretty good this year. Where does he fall this week in terms of this matchup? It's on the road against a pretty good Jags defense.
Yeah, this is not a great matchup here, but at this point, Sam Darnold's been so good, I don't even think it really matters, right? Like, if you got Sam Darnold, just keep rolling with him. He's got to be solid.
Yeah, it's not as good a matchup for him, but exactly. He's going to be solid. I mean, Jaguars are turning the ball over on defense at a crazy rate. I mean, I don't feel like it's going to be the best Darnold game, but at the same time, he's showing you he's got that floor. All right, I'm curious how you feel about Trevor Lawrence. All right, so again, if you look at the box score, at least for as far as the passing numbers, not too impressive, although it was the Chiefs, I get that. But then he's running in 2 touchdowns. He's starting to run a little bit more this year. Is that encouraging enough?
Not encouraging enough for me. Super flex only here. I'm not banking on 2 rushing touchdowns again from Trevor Lawrence this week. Seahawks not a terrible matchup because they are kind of better against the run than the pass, but I can't get too excited. Super flex.
Yeah, well, Lawrence, of course, you don't want to chase rushing touchdowns. It's not like he's a running quarterback. And, of course, that second one, if anybody saw the replay, that was the luckiest touchdown imaginable. He's never going to really be more than super flex in my eyes against a pretty tough defense, especially.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
Now we got the Chargers taking on the Dolphins. So far, early in the season, this Chargers pass offense was just steamrolling, and Herbert was a strong start. But now, you got to wonder what we've seen the last couple of weeks. Is it starting to fall apart?
I don't want to say it's starting to fall apart. I mean, the offensive line is falling apart. I think that's a big issue here. But the reason why I'm not concerned this week is it's the Dolphins. Like, am I really worried that he's going to be under pressure all game, getting hit? No, I'm not. So this is a get-right spot. I'm going to say Justin Herbert this week. Still a strong start because of the matchup.
Yeah, so on the one hand, like you said, it's a great matchup, Dolphins defense. And look at Marion Hampton out. They're going to have to pass the ball more whether they want to or not. But my question is here, are they going to need to pass the ball that much against the Dolphins? I don't know. I still feel like Herbert is a very solid option. I just don't know if he's going to put up big numbers necessarily in this game. And so, but while the Dolphins have been bad, they are just as bad against the run versus the pass. I think he's a high-end solid start. On the Miami side here, Tua is starting to sort of redeem himself. His numbers have been better even without Tyreek Hill putting up solid stats, but I don't know if that makes him a solid fantasy option. But the real story here is Darren Waller. I mean, come on, honestly, I've got to ask, is he this year's Jonnu Smith?
He might be. The way he's getting utilized in this offense, he's not even running like a ton of routes yet, right? Because he didn't do anything for a year and a half or whatever, and then was hurt to start the season. This guy looks like you can't really bench Darren Waller right now. I think he's got to be solid. It almost doesn't even matter that it's a tough matchup against the Chargers. I don't even care. And then Tua, I'm still going to keep him in the super flex tier here. This is a tough matchup against the Chargers. He's got Darren Waller, he's got A-Chain, he's got Waddle, but they're not like the most exciting weapons. So super flex.
Right. The upside is still somewhat capped for Tua in this offense. So super flex is fair. And as far as Waller, I mean, look, here's the thing. He's going to have to get targeted. And like you said, he's still ramping up as far as usage. We saw his snaps double this past week. He's going to be on the field. He's going to get targeted. He's one of these tight ends that actually has a higher ADOT. He just has to be considered very solid. This week, the Rams are going to take on the Ravens in Baltimore. It's Matt Stafford coming off a pair of huge games. Got a question. Number one, is he back to prime form here? And is there any way he doesn't smash this completely ridiculously bad Ravens defense?
I mean, the only worry here is this too good to be true? Like, is this a trap? But look, last week, I was recommending CJ Stroud a lot, like over guys like Bo Nix, Jackson Dart, Drake May. I was like, no, just give me CJ Stroud. It's the Ravens. And 4 touchdowns. Like, come on. Matthew Stafford looks great. It's the Ravens. How do you not start Matthew Stafford this week? I think he has to be a strong start this week.
He has to. I have the exact same concern. It's probably too good to be true, right? It's like it's too obvious. Maybe this is a trap game, but you have to just follow the numbers, right? I mean, Stafford put up huge games, more than 350 yards and 3 touchdowns twice in a row against pretty good defenses. Now against the Ravens. So, look, if he's out there, I mean, sure, go ahead and put him over a lot of other pretty good quarterbacks, just not those must-start quarterbacks, but you just got to take a chance here. Don't think I want to take a chance on either the quarterback or the tight end positions in Baltimore, though.
No, this is an easy no. Let's just move on.
Now, Cardinals at the Colts. Trey McBride still a set and forget. Kyler Murray, I don't know if he'll ever be that. All right, so Kyler's made the highlight reels lately for a lot of these plays, and not so favorable. I mean, sometimes he feels like he's just kind of running in circles. I'm pretty tired of it. I've always had my concerns with Kyler Murray, but what do you think he does against the Colts this week?
He can't feel great. Colts have been pretty good defensively. I mean, just pretty good overall, right? But I do wonder, kind of like what we saw a couple weeks ago against the Seahawks, is this a game where they're having to play from behind and having to throw the ball more than they want to, and he still gives you that bit of a rushing upside. So I think this week, he's a streamer, but just a streamer.
Yeah, what's aggravating, I guess the most aggravating thing with Murray is like you feel like he should have that rushing upside. Like he should have some of these games where he rips off long runs or he's running in multiple touchdowns. He doesn't do it. Like it just, like the potential is being wasted. I don't know. I'm kind of over him. But anyways, I think he's at least a super flex start, but I don't really want to stream him. There's other quarterbacks I like better. For example, Daniel Jones. I mean, the Colts keep winning. He's been solid. Like the numbers aren't as gaudy as they were the first couple of weeks, but you got to feel at least pretty good about him, even against this Cardinals defense. And then Tyler Warren, it's probably not much longer before he's just a no doubt must start.
I mean, I debate. I'm like, should we just put him as a no doubt must start? We probably should just put him as a no doubt. Like, if you got Tyler Warren, you're starting Tyler Warren. Strong start. Don't think about it. Daniel Jones, I'm also just going to say a streamer this week because the Colts just haven't needed him as much, right? JT looks like the best running back in the NFL right now. Like, he looks phenomenal. They're winning games pretty comfortably. They just haven't needed him. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to force the Colts to need Daniel Jones this week. So a good streamer.
Right, I have the feeling this is not going to be a very high-scoring affair. And so Jones, he hasn't been running in as many touchdowns lately because JT's been doing it. And so that's always possible, but just not a great ceiling this week. But he's still a pretty solid streamer. Now we got the Cowboys at the Panthers. I mean, Jake Ferguson, you can't keep him out of your lineup. Just another one of those players proving why you don't need to draft a tight end super early. Now, as far as the passing game here, it has been also rolling. Dak Prescott, he's probably worked his way at least into the solid tier, maybe more.
I'm going to say solid this week because, look, the Panthers defense has honestly not been that bad this year. Like, they're not great, but they're not that bad. So I think this week, solid. But, I mean, how do you not start Dak Prescott right now?
Exactly. I mean, if you waited and you got Dak at QB, you really have no issues here. You can just kind of set and forget. The question is, I wonder if this game is going to be high scoring or not. The Dallas defense, of course, we know isn't very good, but they've tightened up a little bit lately. I just wonder how much they'll get challenged by the Panthers. So let's just keep Dak as solid, but with potential for a big game. Now, I don't know if Bryce Young really has potential for a big game. Like, sometimes I feel like I watch him and I still have a lot of questions as far as his competency. He makes a lot of weird decisions sometimes, but then at the end of the day, the numbers are still pretty good. And this matchup is pretty good too.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good game for Bryce Young. I'm going to say you can stream him this week. I talked about it when I talked about Justin Fields. The Cowboys play the second most zone of any team. His completion percentage versus man coverage this year, 51%. Versus zone, 64%. Now, look, that's not 64% isn't like crazy, but it's better. And so, against a soft defense that plays a lot of zone, I think he'll be okay. Streamer this week, but that's as high as I can go.
Yeah, and I'm sticking to what I said in the waiver video. If you're streaming quarterback, you're looking for somebody this week who's out there. Obviously, Stafford is your first choice if you can get him. And if not, I think Bryce Young's probably your best fallback because there's not a lot of other good actual streaming quarterbacks that you could get off waivers with a better matchup. So Bryce Young is going to be a high-end streamer. Next, let's talk about Pats at the Saints. All right, so Drake May and Hunter Henry are always guys you kind of wonder what you're going to get out of them on a weekly basis. What do you expect on the road in New Orleans?
Yeah, Drake May is one of these guys I feel like I feel good about Drake May this week. And then I look at the fantasy numbers. I'm like, it was just kind of okay, right? But it's the Saints. I feel good about Drake May again. I'm going to say solid. Let's hope the fantasy points are there. And then same thing with Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, look, he's a tight end. He's not going to have big games every week. That's just how the position goes. But he has a chance to score. He's involved. Unless you have a really good option, I just don't have a reason to bench Hunter Henry. He's also solid.
Henry's always been one of these volatile tight ends. Not that most of them aren't. I think he's still a high-end streamer. Sometimes the targets come and go. Last week was all about Stephon Diggs. Let's see if Henry is the answer this week. As far as Drake May, I think he's got to be at least solid. Look, this Saints defense, they've allowed at least 2 passing touchdowns to every quarterback they faced this year. And they haven't exactly had a brutal schedule either, to be honest. So that said, Drake May's upside is somewhat capped by this offense, so he's just solid. And offensively, look, give credit to Kellen Moore, new coach, for working with what he's got. He's made Spencer Rattler look like a pretty decent quarterback, but that said, there are limitations here as far as fantasy goes. Juwan Johnson looks like he's headed in the wrong direction here, and let's throw Taysom Hill in the mix.
Yeah, I think that Taysom Hill excitement got a little too out of control last week. Look, if you want to hold Taysom Hill, go for it, but I'm not starting Taysom Hill. Juwan Johnson, I don't think it was really because of Taysom Hill. I just think we're kind of seeing maybe some regression here. Just a streamer this week. Spencer Rattler, look, this is a good matchup. Pats are a pass funnel, very strong against the run, not very good against the pass, but how good can I really feel about Spencer Rattler? Not that good, so just super flex.
Just super flex, exactly. There's still a cap on what Rattler can bring to the table here. I'm not going to slide Juwan Johnson completely off the radar yet. He's a streamer, but man, another game with only like 2 catches and maybe he's droppable. And then, you know what? There will come a time where we get the random 40-point Taysom Hill outburst. I don't think it's this week, let's talk Browns at Steelers. New quarterback Dylan Gabriel. A pretty good debut. Obviously not huge numbers. I don't think we'll ever expect big numbers from Gabriel in this offense, but got big numbers from a tight end. It was David Njoku. Here's the question. Is it going to go the other way? Is this still going to be sort of a timeshare at tight end? Or do you feel good enough about what Njoku did that it might actually continue?
I mean, you got to feel good about Njoku. Led the team in targets. Like that's encouraging here, right? And the Steelers' 3rd most points allowed at tight end. So I think Njoku's got to be solid. I'll say Fannin, if you want to stream him, you can. He was also pretty well involved. And then Dylan Gabriel, he doesn't have a ton of upside. He doesn't have like arm strength, right? He's not going to throw a 50-yard touchdown unless somebody takes a 5-yard pass to the house or something. But he's serviceable in Superflex if you need him.
I feel like Gabriel should be serviceable. Like I say, he's not going to kill you. But again, I'm like, what is the upside? He doesn't run. He's not throwing for 300 plus yards. They're not even going to try to ask him to do that. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be a high scoring game. So, I mean, look, you've got to be really desperate in a week where there's only 2 teams off. I'm going to say probably just sit Gabriel. As far as tight ends, yes, this is what we wanted from Njoku. I had a suspicion that Gabriel would definitely help the tight ends and kind of hurt the receivers. That's what we saw. So now that it's confirmed, I'll say, yeah, Njoku should be solid this week against what has been a bad Steelers defense. And Fannin is now, again, streamable. And on the flip side, Aaron Rodgers and his tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, you get this Browns defense. They are coming off a bye. You figure they've got a good game plan worked out here?
They might have a good game plan, but this is not a great matchup. Aaron Rodgers, outside of week 1, has not looked very good. And I mean, really, it's like week 1 and then that 80-yard play to DK Metcalf where DK Metcalf did all the work, basically. I'm sitting Aaron Rodgers. I'm sitting Freiermuth. Jonnu, barely a streamer here. This is not really a good matchup for him individually, but he could score, I guess.
Yeah, I think Jonnu is just barely a streaming candidate because we talked about wide receiver. We're still not sure the status of Calvin Austin. And so in that case, maybe if you need him, but there's so many other good tight end options out there these days for whatever reason. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, again, this game should not be high scoring. The ceiling is capped here. I'm just sitting. Now we got Titans at Raiders. It's like 2 teams heading the opposite direction. Titans pulled out a win. First victory for Cam Ward. Congratulations. So let's talk about how optimistic are you with Ward, fantasy, that is, and his tight end, Chig Okonkwo?
Well, I can't get too excited about Cam Ward. Look, you look at it. Okay, another guy who is actually better against zone than man. He's got a 35% completion percentage against man coverage this year. Okay, 57% versus zone. It's not great, but it's at least better. And the Raiders play the most zone. 90% of the time they play zone. Pretty much all the time they're in zone. So if you want to take a chance in Superflex, you can, but it's risky. And then, look, you got to feel pretty good about Chig. Got involved last week. Also, he's much better against cover 3. Raiders play cover 3 52% of the time. His targets per route run rate goes from 0.17 to 0.23. So I certainly think Chig is streamable.
Chig, one of those tight ends, also inconsistent target shares to be expected, but this is a good matchup. So he's a streamer, and then Cam Ward, it's going to take time, and by time I mean another offseason where they actually add more skilled players to this offense, maybe new coaching staff, who knows. So barely super flex because there's just not enough volume here. All right, this is going to be a tough one. All right, let's get this out of the way with first Geno Smith. I mean, I know if you for some reason still have Geno Smith, first of all, it's probably a deep league and you really don't want to even think about Geno Smith anymore, but it is the Titans. And then probably even worse if you got Brock Bowers. Man, not playing, and even if he does play, he does not seem like he's anywhere close to healthy.
No, it doesn't seem anywhere close to 100%, but I will say, if Brock Bowers plays, I'm not going to sit Brock Bowers here. I'll say solid this week because, hopefully if he plays, it means he's 100%. So I'll say solid, borderline strong, not really sitting Brock Bowers. I'll say again about Geno Smith. Okay, he's been awful, but again, another guy much better against zone. 50% completion percentage versus man, 73% versus zone, and the Titans play zone 80% of the time. Again, if you need him in Superflex, you can do it, but it is still risky.
Definitely risky. I mean, just don't turn the ball over, right? It's the Titans. Come on, you should be able to do something here. That's why I worry they're just going to run the ball more, going to be a lot more conservative. So there's a pretty hard cap on his upside, as we've seen. That said, not the worst option in a super flex league. I would still go Geno over a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And then Brock Bowers, agree. If he's deemed healthy enough to play, I mean, how do you just straight up bench him? I mean, you've got to have one of a very small handful of must-start tight ends to put him over Bowers. But let's just call him solid. 49ers taking on the Bucs this week. So here we go. Is Brock Purdy going to play? Is George Kittle going to play? If so, well, what do we do with this team? Are you going to start Mac Jones? Are you going to start Jake Tonjes? Like, what's the deal in San Francisco?
Well, there's a lot of ifs here. I mean, look, if George Kittle plays, you play George Kittle. No questions asked. Brock Purdy, I think if he plays, should be solid. You know, Bucs, not the worst pass defense, but they're worse against the pass than the run here. If it's Mac Jones, I mean, I probably should say solid after last week, but I can't do it. I'll say streaming option is fine. And then same with Jake Tonjes. If George Kittle does not return this week, hey, he's scored in a couple games now. He's got to at least be worth a stream.
Look, I almost feel like it doesn't matter. Mac Jones has basically looked just as good, arguably better than Brock Purdy. I know it's because of the toe thing, but still, I think it doesn't matter. Either way, the quarterback for the 49ers, whoever it is a solid pick this week against this Bucs pass funnel defense. And then as far as Jake Tonjes, how can he not be on the streaming radar after last week? Now, if Jennings and Pearsall all play, then that might affect him, but he's still got upside. And then for Tampa, I've got to say, it might not be too much longer that we just say, look, if you have Baker Mayfield, just don't even think about it. Like, just start him.
Yeah, he looks good this year. I mean, looked good last year too. And I think he's got to be a strong start this week. You look at it, again, another guy with like really pronounced splits versus man and zone coverage. 70% completion percentage versus zone, only 38% versus man. Last week against the Seahawks, he destroyed them. They play 77% zone. 49ers play 75% zone. This should be another good Mayfield game. Fire him up.
Yeah, there's really nothing to think about. He also does have some rushing upside here. 49ers defense, don't forget, no Bosa. They've been okay still, but nothing to scare you off of Baker. All right, it's time to discuss the Bengals at the Packers. Okay, so, this was going to be all about Jake Browning. Maybe he showed a little something, at least statistically he did last week. But it doesn't even matter anymore because now it seems like he might not even be the starting quarterback because if you haven't heard, they got Joe Flacco. That's right, Flacco could be the starting quarterback in that same division for Cincinnati instead of Cleveland. Not sure why, but let's just get into the matchup itself here. Okay, we don't know for sure Flacco's the starting quarterback in Week 6 as of right now, but does it really matter?
No, I don't think it matters. On the road against the Packers, I mean, Jake Browning, if he starts again, no, this is a hard no here. And look, Joe Flacco, he's only going to have, a few days to prepare for this game, to learn the playbook, to learn these players. Like, am I really going to put Joe Flacco in my lineup against the Packers after what we saw in Cleveland? No chance.
There are a lot of quarterbacks I would say I would consider sitting on the road against this Green Bay defense. And I think both Browning and Flacco, no matter what team they are with, they fit that bill. So it doesn't really matter here. Even in Superflex, don't take the chance. But then on the other hand, we got Jordan Love, another tasty matchup for him. We saw what he did against the Cowboys defense before the bye, and now he's got this Bengals defense. So how good do you feel about him?
I'm going to say strong start, but I don't feel as good as I probably should here. I mean, I know it's the Bengals and we want to attack this matchup, but I do worry that it's just going to be a heavy dose of Josh Jacobs. And I don't think the Bengals are going to play to a 40-40 tie versus the Packers like the Cowboys did, but it's such a good matchup. I think he's got to be a strong start. And then, look, Tucker Kraft, I don't know how you don't start Tucker Kraft this week. Like, I got a lot of questions about Sam Laporta, like, hey, he hasn't been good. Should I start him? I said, it's the Bengals. Let's give him another chance. And he went off. It's the Bengals. I'm starting Tucker Kraft. Also a strong start.
Yeah, the thing with Love, and it's true, we're never going to see a ton of pass volume as far as pass attempts, unless they're maybe playing from behind. They're probably not going to be playing from behind here. But look what he did. Even in that game a couple weeks ago, he still can throw for like 3 or 4 touchdowns. So I think let's keep him in the strong tier here. And then as far as Tucker Kraft, I mean, you're right. Like, it's still inconsistent in terms of his target share. He'll kind of be boom bust to some extent. So I think he's a very solid pick here because the Bengals are pretty bad against the tight end. All right, now Lions at the Chiefs. Let's figure out what we do with guys like Jared Goff and Sam Laporta. Great last week. That was the Bengals. Now they're on the road against this Chiefs defense, though.
Can't feel as good, but I can never really drop Goff down too far. I still think I have to put Goff in the solid tier. Maybe not one of my favorite solid quarterbacks this week, but in this Lions offense, how can you really be scared off of Jared Goff? And then Laporta, I am going to drop down. I'm going to say still solid, but I don't get too excited about what happened last week because, again, that was the Bengals. Chiefs allowing the second fewest fantasy points to tight ends this year. So I'm going to say Laporta solid, but risky solid.
Yeah, I'm with you on Laporta. I mean, still one of your better options at tight end. Just don't expect a big game here. I am going to go down on Goff this week. He is going to be on the road, and those splits aren't as pronounced, but he's still better at home. This is a tough environment. This is a good Chiefs defense. He's not going to run in a couple of touchdowns like Trevor Lawrence did, which I'm still not sure how he did that. But yeah, I think Goff here might have a rough game. It's going to be super flex only for me. And for the KC side, Pat Mahomes looks like he's continuing to get better statistically as the season goes on. Still a week away from Rashee Rice coming back. Travis Kelce is there, and hey, actually had himself a pretty good game. Is he also going to continue to get better?
I don't think he's going to continue to get better. Look, didn't his fiance just drop a new album? Maybe he was motivated. But look, really, I think what's going on here is Patrick Mahomes started to look like Patrick Mahomes again. This offense is starting to look like the Chiefs' offense again. So I think Mahomes has to be solid, even in a tough matchup here. And Kelce, he's streamer.
Let's not get carried away here. Kelce is still a high-end streamer, but not a guy that you can just set and forget anymore. And then Mahomes, yeah, I mean, solid. This is a matchup where you figure he'll be passing a fair amount. And look, he is still, in most of these games, like the leading rusher for the Chiefs, which you think is a problem, but yes, somehow it's not a big problem for them in their eyes. So yeah, he's a very solid pick. On Monday night, we're going to have the Bills at the Falcons. You definitely want to start Josh Allen. You definitely want to start Dalton Kincaid too. I mean, he's starting to show that he's one of the top targets in this offense.
Yeah, I don't even care about like snaps or routes. It doesn't matter because he gets targeted when he's out there, and that's all that really matters. And not only that, he leads the team in targets per route run this year versus single high coverage. The Falcons play the most single high 68% of the time. This is a great spot for Dalton Kincaid. I think he's very high-end solid, borderline strong start this week.
Yeah, that's the thing with Kincaid. He's not going to get a consistently high target share, but sometimes it doesn't matter, right? He's got that huge ceiling in this offense, and when he's involved, he's making the most of it. So I think he's a solid play against this Falcons defense. Shouldn't scare you off of him. Now, does the Bills defense scare you off of Michael Penix and or Kyle Pitts?
I mean, not really. What scares me here is more like the offense, and probably more the fact that the Bills are really bad against the run and not so bad against the pass. So I think it might just be like a big Bijan Robinson week. So I'm going to say Penix is super flex this week, and I'll say Pitts just a streamer.
Yeah, what worries me is that the Falcons are still one of the more run-heavy teams. We got one of the highest rush percentages in neutral game situations. The question is this going to be a neutral game situation? Are the Bills going to run up on them? I don't feel like the Bills are going to be blowing them out, and Penix has all this garbage time production, and he has to pass it 40-plus times. The Falcons' defense has gotten better. They're at home, so I think Penix is just kind of a okay streamer. And finally, we have the Bears at the Commanders also on Monday night. Jaden Daniels, thankfully, back. If you got him, you're good to go. All right, well, what do we do with the Bears now? Caleb Williams has been kind of up and down. This team also coming off its early bye. What do you expect against the Commanders?
I feel good about Caleb. He's mostly been good for fantasy this year. He runs. Commanders' pass defense doesn't scare me. I know they had a nice game against Justin Herbert, but again, that offensive line is decimated. I'm going to say Caleb Williams is solid this week.
I still have some questions, some reservations here about Caleb Williams. And, I feel like his best game so far was one where they were just having to pass the ball a ton against a pretty bad defense. I'm still not seeing everything I want to. I don't know if they've got everything ironed out after the bye. This offense should continue to get better. I still feel like it's not completely there yet. And so I'm going to keep him in the streaming category. He's probably one of the more high-end streamers, but at the same time, I'm not just fully expecting good numbers. And then as far as Washington, well, tight end, still Zach Ertz. What do you think he can do against the Bears?
I just think he's solid. I mean, look, he's not going to score every week. Like, he's a tight end, right? He's not going to have a big game every week, but it's the Bears. This matchup doesn't scare me. If you got Ertz, he's solid.
Should be solid here. JD's back. Is McLaurin going to be back? Oh, who knows as far as that goes. That might impact Ertz, but yeah, I think the Bears defense is bad enough we can keep Ertz as a pretty solid pick. All right, that's everything you need to know about the quarterback and tight end positions for Week 6. Got questions about running back and receiver? Sure you do. Well, that is all part of the Week 6 playlist. Everything you need to help you dominate.